This is the global military shift quietly rewriting power before most people realize it. In 2026, the balance of strength is moving in plain sight. Some countries are rearming after decades of restraint. Others are converting economic weight into ships, missiles, and data-driven command systems. This countdown breaks down 10 militaries reshaping global influence right now and why their trajectories matter. Watch closely because the top entries reveal how fast the world is changing. Number 10. Germany. For a long time, Germany treated military expansion as a political taboo. The Cold War ended, the economy globalized, and Berlin leaned into diplomacy, trade, and restraint. Then the security environment hardened. After 2022, Germany announced a Zeitenwende, a turning point in defense policy backed by a €100 billion modernization fund. It was not a small adjustment, it was a strategic reset. The Bundeswehr began buying F-35 stealth fighters to restore credible strike and deterrence in NATO's air posture. Eurofighters were upgraded to remain relevant against modern threats. Air and missile defense investment expanded, reflecting a Europe that suddenly had to think about saturation attacks, drones, and cruise missiles again. By 2026, Germany had climbed to 12th place in prominent global military rankings, a noticeable jump that signaled momentum rather than a finished transformation. The surprising detail is not the hardware, it is the politics. Europe's largest economy is re-entering hard security leadership after decades of caution. That changes alliance planning because Germany's logistics network, industrial capacity, and geographic position are central to reinforcement across Europe. And yet, Germany's resurgence still moves with careful steps. It is rebuilding capability while managing historical memory and domestic debate. The next country on this list moved faster, and it placed its bet on the one domain that decides island security, the sea. Number 9. Japan. Japan's post-war constitution once placed tight limits on military expansion. For decades, Tokyo framed its force posture as defensive by design. But geography does not negotiate. The Indo-Pacific became more contested, missile ranges grew, and maritime pressure increased. By the mid-2020s, Japan's self-defense forces were undergoing one of the most rapid transformations in Asia. Defense spending surged toward 2% of GDP, supported by a budget exceeding $60 billion by fiscal year 2025. That money is not going into parade pieces, it's going into long-range strike options, layered missile defense, resilient command and control, and upgraded naval aviation. The moment that changed outside perception was symbolic and practical. Japan converted its Izumo-class ships to operate F-35B stealth fighters. In effect, carrier aviation returned decades after World War II, but under a modern rationale: deterrence through reach, not conquest through occupation. Why does that matter? Because Japan's strategy shifted from pure homeland defense to regional denial and alliance-enabled response. It is building a force that can complicate any adversary's planning across sea lanes, choke points, and island chains. But Japan's posture is also anchored in partnerships and industrial scale. The next country climbed by doing something different, exporting influence through a weapon that is smaller, cheaper, and everywhere: drones. Number 8. Turkey. Turkey's rise in the 2020s did not begin with a new tank fleet or a flagship fighter squadron. It began with drones and with a doctrine that treated unmanned systems as mainstream, not experimental. The Bayraktar TB2 became the emblem of that shift. It was not just a platform, it was a message. Turkey could design, produce, and export combat capability at scale. Turkish drone operations helped reshape battles in Libya, Syria, and the Caucasus. The TB2's impact was not magic, it was the pairing of persistent surveillance with precision strikes against exposed armor, air defenses, and supply nodes. It showed how modest-cost systems can produce strategic effects when opponents lack integrated air defense and electronic protection. By 2026, Turkey sustained overseas deployments while pushing forward with indigenous aerospace goals, including the TFX fighter program. The surprising element is how Turkey blends NATO membership with strategic independence. It can cooperate with allies while also pursuing operations that expand diplomatic leverage on its own terms. And the numbers still matter. Turkey's army remains NATO's second largest by personnel, giving it weight in any alliance planning. But drones alone do not define enduring power. The next country combines mass, modernization, and a deterrent that forces rivals to think twice: nuclear capability. Number 7. India. India's military story is scale meeting modernization, with geography and competition pushing both. Since its 1998 nuclear tests, India has developed a full nuclear triad: land-based missiles, air-delivered options, and sea-based deterrence. That triad is not only about war, it's about preventing coercion. By 2025, defense spending reached roughly $74 billion, supporting steady expansion across services. India's naval posture is the clearest signal of its ambition. With the INS Vikramaditya and the domestically built Vikrant, India strengthened carrier aviation and extended its presence across the Indo-Pacific. Here's what often surprises analysts: India's growth is not purely defensive. It increasingly focuses on maritime influence, long-range deterrence, and the protection of sea lines that carry energy and trade. It positions India as a counterweight to expanding Chinese power, especially around choke points and island chains. Advanced missile programs, including hypersonic research and modern air defense, remain part of the trajectory. India also works through partnerships and cooperative frameworks, balancing autonomy with alignment. But the next military power thrives precisely because it does not rely on conventional parity or broad alliances. It wins by forcing opponents to fight on uncomfortable terms: asymmetry. Number 6. Iran. Iran's strength is built on asymmetry and endurance. Under sanctions and constrained access to cutting-edge imports, Tehran invested in what it could scale domestically: missiles, drones, and a strategy designed to overwhelm defenses through volume and dispersion rather than mirror image modernization. Iran built one of the region's largest missile and drone arsenals. The logic is straightforward. If you can't match an opponent aircraft for aircraft, you create a dense strike problem. You spread launchers, harden storage, and complicate targeting. Low-cost systems can still create high-cost dilemmas for advanced militaries that must intercept everything to avoid catastrophe. Shahed drones highlighted that model on modern battlefields. They demonstrated how inexpensive, mass-produced unmanned systems can stress air defenses, create uncertainty, and impose economic strain, especially when used alongside missiles and electronic disruption. Iran also maintains large manpower reserves and a network of regional partners that extends its influence beyond its borders. That combination enables power projection without traditional expeditionary forces. It reshaped Middle Eastern security calculations by making crises harder to isolate and easier to escalate. But Iran's reach remains primarily regional. The next country commands global attention despite far tighter economic limits because it treats deterrence as the core of regime survival. Number 5. North Korea. North Korea's military posture is built around one priority: survival through fear of retaliation. Since its first nuclear test in 2006, Pyongyang has poured resources into missiles and warheads, even when the civilian economy struggled. By 2026, leadership ordered increased production of missiles while continuing tests tied to long-range families like the Hwasong series. The contrast is stark. Conventional modernization is uneven, but strategic weapon development advances quickly. Parades routinely unveil new launchers and payload shapes before analysts can fully verify performance, and every test forces neighbors to recalibrate risk. It also fields one of the world's largest standing armies, creating the image of depth and endurance, yet the real leverage comes from the possibility that a crisis could jump from local to strategic in hours. And just across the border sits a force built less on mass and more on high-end technology. Number 4. South Korea. South Korea transformed permanent vulnerability into technological strength. Since the armistice of 1953, the country has lived under constant military pressure, forcing Seoul to prioritize readiness, modernization, and rapid response capability. Over decades, necessity evolved into innovation. By 2026, South Korea ranked among the world's most capable conventional military powers, not only defending itself, but shaping global defense markets. Its armed forces emphasize precision, mobility, and advanced manufacturing. The domestically produced K-2 main battle tank reflects modern armored doctrine, combining advanced fire control systems with mobility suited for Korea's mountainous terrain. Its K-9 self-propelled artillery gained international recognition, exported widely, and integrated into allied armies across Europe and beyond. These programs reflect a doctrine built around rapid retaliation and layered deterrence rather than prolonged attrition warfare. The surprising factor is economic integration. South Korea is not only a consumer of defense technology, it is now a leading exporter. Defense manufacturing became a strategic industry, strengthening alliances while boosting domestic innovation. Equipment sales deepen partnerships and expand geopolitical influence without deploying troops abroad. Yet, even advanced conventional forces require global reach to influence events far from home. The next country maintains exactly that capability through history, autonomy, and expeditionary power. Number 3. France. France occupies a unique position among modern militaries. It remains Europe's most expeditionary force, capable of projecting power independently across continents. This capability stems from decades of investment in strategic autonomy, allowing Paris to operate globally even when alliances move slowly. At the center of French deterrence lies the Force de Frappe, an independent nuclear arsenal developed during the Cold War to guarantee national sovereignty. Unlike many European states, France retained full operational control over its nuclear forces, ensuring strategic decision-making remains national rather than collective. France also maintains overseas bases spanning Africa, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific. These installations allow rapid deployment for crisis response, counter-terrorism operations, and stabilization missions. Aircraft carriers and amphibious ships extend reach further, enabling sustained operations far from European shores. The Rafale fighter jet became both a military and diplomatic instrument. Export agreements strengthen defense partnerships while reinforcing industrial independence. Every sale deepens cooperation, training exchanges, and long-term strategic ties. Here is the deeper insight. France's influence comes not from scale alone, but from freedom of action. It can intervene when necessary, withdraw when interests change, and operate without total reliance on external command structures. Yet even France's global flexibility unfolds within a wider geopolitical context, shaped by active conflict and accelerated adaptation. That reality defines the next entry. Number 2. Russia. Russia remains one of the world's most heavily armed nations, anchored by a nuclear arsenal estimated at nearly 6,000 warheads. Strategic deterrence continues to define its military identity, supported by modernization of missiles, submarines, and delivery systems. The war in Ukraine forced rapid adaptation across multiple domains. Drone warfare expanded, merging reconnaissance and strike roles into routine operations. Artillery coordination improved through digital targeting, while electronic warfare units increasingly influenced outcomes by disrupting communications, navigation signals, and drone control links. Conflict accelerated learning. Equipment weaknesses quickly shaped changes in tactics, logistics, and production priorities. Defense spending surged, pushing the economy toward wartime output levels exceeding 7% of GDP. Ammunition production expanded as new systems moved from testing into deployment far faster than peacetime timelines allow. The defining factor is experiential learning.
Real combat exposes vulnerabilities, validates tactics, and drives rapid doctrinal evolution. Modern hybrid warfare now blends cyber operations, missile strikes, information campaigns, and conventional maneuver into layered strategies designed to stretch adversaries across multiple domains. Yet even combat-experienced forces operate within a wider geopolitical context. One power is reshaping global military balance not through active war, but through sustained expansion and long-term planning. Number 1. China. China's military transformation represents one of the fastest expansions of organized power in modern history. Following reforms launched in 2015, the People's Liberation Army shifted from manpower-heavy structures toward technologically integrated joint operations across land, sea, air, cyber, and space. Command systems were reorganized and unified theater commands established to improve coordination and decision speed. Chinese doctrine emphasizes information dominance over troop numbers, prioritizing surveillance networks, electronic warfare, artificial intelligence, and resilient communications to achieve decision superiority during conflict. Naval expansion is the clearest expression of this shift. China now fields the world's largest navy by ship count, supported by a powerful domestic shipbuilding industry, enabling continuous production and extended operational reach across the Indo-Pacific. Modernization spans all domains, including advanced missile forces, upgraded air capabilities, unmanned systems, and integrated satellite reconnaissance networks. Chinese strategy increasingly centers on unified operations, linking cyber forces, fleets, aircraft, and precision weapons into a single operational framework. Military competition today is defined by multiple evolving power centers, marking an era where technological integration and adaptivity increasingly determine global military strength. Like, share, and subscribe for deeper military analysis. Which military power do you think America should be more scared of?